Howdy, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning, afternoon, wherever you're calling out of. We'll give it a couple minutes for folks to trickle in. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you want. Hello. Howdy, Dave. Happy Thursday.
Oh, are we already going? This is impressive. We waste no time at all.
No time. 30-minute demo. We got a lot to cover.
Well, and it's tax season. We can't be minutes are money here. So
That's right. That's right. I love it.
Minutes for
Well,
money.
I'll be
That
on
should be the
standby.
new
I'll let you guys
slogan.
run the show, but I'll be here if you need me.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll give it a couple more minutes.
had a good chunk of folks here today.
Oh, love to see it. We'll get started with introduction. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rebecca Lammis. I'm one of our team's accountants and I am head of QA. So I help ensure that every part of our product is tax logic, sound and tax logical, you could say, and everything is accurate to what a CPA would expect. And then Jack, of course, as most of you know, is one of our co-founders and our head of AI. And then Dave is, of course, our founder and CEO. So for today, we're going to go and run through kind of the end-to-end process of using Lacerte and how it integrates with Juno. So we're just going to start off with a few slides, and I'm going to kind of cover very high level how this process works and kind of the various steps of our product to integrate Lacerte with Juno. And that'll only take a couple minutes, and then Jack will jump in and do about a 10-minute demo. So end to end, you can really see everything. Throughout this meeting, feel free to just share any questions you might have in our webinar chat or within the QA channel. We'll definitely be reviewing and answering questions as we run through this. And the one other thing I would flag as well is if you have any like very specific support related issues, definitely send that over to our support team, support@juno.tax. They can definitely help you out there. And for anyone on the demo as well that might be new to Juno, we're definitely going into the weeds of things here, so bear with us, but definitely feel free to take a look as well at support.juno.tax, where we have lots of articles that cover everything we're talking about and go more into depth and have more details there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. So starting off, as I'm sure most of you are familiar, the installation process of Lacerte is really probably the most important process of getting you set up with Juno. We would say most of the bugs and concerns that our customers face are a direct result of not necessarily having done the correct installation path initially. And if you did do a demo with Juno, our support team will do a call with you after you finish kind of your test run with Juno before you get set up. So they should walk through this with you on a call, but definitely feel free to email support or hop on a call with them if you want to know some more info here. But high level, before connecting Lacerte to your Juno app, a couple key things you really need to make sure you have completed is you want Lacerte installed locally or host installs integrated to the app. Make sure that your Lacerte driver is up to date. As we know, every year that changes. So often we'll see individuals who aren't able to necessarily do exports for 2025, but it's because they don't have the Lacerte SDK updated for the new year. And just a flag there, make sure you restart your computer after install. And then make sure your ODBC data sources are also not visible, but the driver could be missing. We want to make sure that's all up to date, and that's something that you can check there. And then the last thing there, and Jack will show this in kind of the flow of the demo, but you want to make sure that your installation path is correct. So we recommend Lacerte-25 tax-idata. This is probably one of the most common kind of pitfalls of getting Lacerte set up with Juno, is that your installation path that is connected isn't necessarily the right one where all your files live. So then naturally it can't export properly because it's not connected to the correct path with Lacertes. So actually getting set up and connecting and syncing your clients, Jack is about to go through all of this process, but when you're first connecting, I have a couple images down here. So you're going to go ahead and get this pop-up that says integrate and sync with the cert. You're going to want to confirm access, so make sure you grant that when the pop-up comes up. Then you'll sign in. And then this is the pop-up you should get until you've synced your clients or you've started working on your clients within Lacerte's preparation. Once again, common connection failures, missing SDK or ODBC driver, wrong taxier folder selected. Jack will show that in the demo, but that's a big one. Your hosted environment is not confirmed, so definitely work with your IT team there. And making sure you restart after the SDK install. And once again, if you're having any problems here, reach out to support. They'll hop on a demo with you to walk you through this. All right, so then for actually preparing the return, Jack will go through all of this, but it's a pretty simple process. So when you open one of your clients, you have the ability to essentially dump all of your source documents, up to 50 documents at once for that client. You'll have a page that looks like this. Then you get brought to your kind of preparation screen where it shows all of the uploaded source documents. It classifies them by document type, allows you to review the data live there. And then it essentially will have a status on if it's validated or it needs review. So when you click on a source document, this is what it looks like. It essentially takes every piece of data, pulls it out, and essentially tells you if it needs to be validated still, if it's possibly missing, or if it looks good to go. And so we definitely recommend just kind of doing a quick click through of all your source documents to make sure that our AI extracted proper data and you're seeing everything as you would expect. And if for some reason one of your forms is not showing up, you have the ability to add a new form and just manually add in that data. So then for the actual exporting data into Lacerte, so a couple things we recommend your pre-export checklist. So you're going to open up your application and you want to make sure that the Lacerte is open with all clients screen. This is really important because if you have a specific return open when you're trying to export, it won't work properly. So you definitely want to make sure that on the Lacerte side of things, all of your clients are showing before you handle and do the export. Now for the export itself, you have the ability to select which forms you want to export per client. Jack will definitely walk through that. And what's really nice, what we have here is it is connected to your clients based off the client ID. So it's really important that the client ID you have for Lacerte within Juno is the same as the client ID within your actual Lacerte application and software. And that's how they match. And so then once the client ID is found, and you can always resync clients if for some reason it's not popping up. And then once you have completed that, you just click export. And then once it's done, you'll get this little flag that says export to Lacerte complete. And once again, we really recommend making sure that your SDK is up to date for 2025. That is probably the most common pitfall here. But Jack will walk through this part of the demo as well, so you can see this live. And all right, let me see if I can go to the next page. Oh, I think that's it. So those are kind of the 3 high-level steps. And then Jack's gonna take it away with actually showing you a live demo. So let me go ahead and stop my screen share. Any questions you wanna bring up, Jack, from the community before we do the demo?
Yeah, there's one on the binder. I will address that momentarily, Laura, but I will go through the core flow here first, just so that way we can get through the end to end here. So I am in Juno on the web app, right? And so most of you would be familiar with this. I'm going to go ahead and click Tax Software Demos. I've already uploaded the documents here. If you haven't uploaded documents, the screen that you'll drop into, it looks like this. So you can just drag and drop the files in here. They'll show up on the right. And then upon hitting continue, they will upload and be processed within a few minutes. One note is for any TaxDome user, that part of the process is different, where instead of having to download the documents from TaxDome and then upload them by dragging them in, you instead have a button on TaxDome that says send to Juno. And upon clicking that button and selecting the documents you would like to send, those documents will get sent right over to Juno. It'll set the client up for you in Juno, and then it will associate those documents and process them all in the background. Usually by the time that you hit send to Juno and then pop over to Juno, those documents are already processed. So like Rebecca had said, this is the screen that we're at here. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty yet on what these documents are because the focus of today is Lacerte and pushing this data into Lacerte. But assuming that you have gone through each of these documents and you've opened up and taken a look at the data, validated that this is what you like to see, right? So for instance, this brokerage statement, I want to make sure the cost basis and everything lines up with what I'm seeing. Once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and open up the Juno integration app. So I'm going to close my browser now. And so we see the app show up here. And again, you're going to see all of the returns that you've been setting up. And the one that I'm working with is tax software demos here. You can see that matches with the return I have open here. And then I also have Lacerte open here. Now my client name is different, but just for the sake of the demo here, the only thing that actually matters is ensuring that your client number matches the client number on your client within Juno. And when you do the client sync, we will pull all of that information in. So there's really nothing you have to worry about there. And if there is a client number mismatch, like I said, I'll go through that flow in a moment here just to show you. But if there ever is a mismatch, we'll show you exactly how to point to the right client. But in this case, I'll open this guy up. You can see I've basically got no information in here. I think there might just be some leftover 1099 SSA stuff, but I'll go ahead and delete that off quick. And then I want to be on the client screen. This is very important. If you're in a client, Lacerte actually locks up that client's data. And so you cannot push any information in. So you'll want to make sure you're on the client screen before you push any information over from Juno. Then in the Juno integration app, again, all I have to do is I click Tax Software Demos. You're going to see it's going to connect here. Now, before the call, I actually went and just made sure my connections were set up and did a couple test runs before I do the demo. But normally what can happen, especially in the morning for the very first time you push data to Lacerte, if you just shut your computer off and turned it back on, is it can sit on a screen that looks like it's connecting. Lacerte is a little bit annoying in this way where it will actually pull this pop-up and it will put a pop-up behind all of your windows to log into it. So just make sure that if you're waiting for it to connect and you're not sure what's going on, just pull down all of your windows and just look if there's anything there. And it's always behind the windows. That's one caveat to just be aware of. Nothing we can really do on that. Unfortunately, it's just something Lacerte does. But anyways, once we're in here, we can see all the documents. Of course, I have already exported these for other demos I've done in the past. So you can see the last exported time. And so it's going to preset all of those to skip. What's really cool about Juno is we let you export as many times as you want at no additional charge. So if you're, in late March and a client says, oh, by the way, I forgot a W-2, here it is. You can upload that W-2 to Juno. And once you pop in here, you would open up this page and it would have the W-2 that you just uploaded set to add new form and the other ones set to skip. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and run the import with all 6 of these forms here. Go ahead and click Export to Lacerte, and it takes usually no more than 10 or 20 seconds, depending on the number of forms here. Like 5 seconds actually there. And then once I go back into Lacerte, I can see that the data has populated here. So the next thing I'm going to show you here, and we can see there's a W-2 with some information populated. Let me change one of the numbers in the W-2 to 123 or something else, right? When I go back to clients here, and I'm going to go out. And let's say that, like I said, I brought in a new W-2 or I have pro forma information that I want to actually match on the existing W-2. You'll see that index 1 shows up here now as an option, whereas previously to this, there was only add new form and skip. And index 1 is basically the first W-2 that is there, and we will auto match. The problem with this W-2, for instance, is because I'm using a dummy document, I did not put any payers information in here, so there's not really anything like the name of the employer. There's not really anything it has to match on. Normally, you would see the name of the employer show up, but again, just for the sake of the demo, I don't have that on this document. It's all blacked out, and you can see that within the PDF once it would load up here. So anyways, if I wanted to then update this W-2 or enter data onto pro forma information rather than just creating a new form each time, I can go ahead and do that. The other thing that I can do is we can see that there are two businesses now as well, right? Because I entered two Schedule Cs. Well, if I have another Excel sheet come in or I have multiple P&L statements for one business, I can actually upload all of those and enter them into the same index at the same time, and it will merge the two P&L data points together and enter it into that one. In this case, it's called Juno Tax is the name of the business that we're going to push the data into. Another quick nuance on the schedules while I'm on the topic here. So when you're reviewing the data, there is this toggle at the top of each one of the schedule categories, right? So when we extract information, we extract it line by line rather than summing it up automatically. However, sometimes it's preferable to input the sum of the whole category, which is our default value. So you'll see in the Juno web app here, we have the toggles all set to only export category total, which again means it's going to sum up the total of these rather than importing each line item. However, if you prefer it to be each line item, you can turn that off. And if it's off in this case, you're going to see it's going to enter all of these individual line items instead of the total. And we're going to go ahead and do that here. So I'm going to pull up Lacerte. I have these two set to this index, and I'm going to go ahead and export into Lacerte, and we'll take a look at how this works with the Schedule C here. Perfect. So once I've imported that, I can go into my Schedule C, and I imported this both onto index 1 here. And I can go to gross receipts, and I should see the same data populated 3 times because I have imported it once the first time. So I see sales widget A there, and then I imported it 2 times a second time, right? Because I have 2 of the same, I use the same CSV upload, but 2 of the same CSVs that I entered into this guy. So we can see that that data went in there twice the second time. And then if I look at returns and allowances, which was set to the total, you can see that it's just the total instead for each of the different schedules there. So that's one of the customizations you can make onto the data import process. The second customization you can make is regarding some 1099s and 1098s. So sometimes the 1099s, they will go to a Schedule C instead of a the other income section of Lacerte. So in this case, if I want to enter this 1099 miscellaneous and I want the rents and royalties to go to a Schedule E, I can go ahead and export this over. And I'm actually not sure if I have rents and royalties on this guy. So we're going to see if this actually populates anything. Yep, looks like we do. So you can see that we have a Schedule E with the rents and royalties set to 16,800. And of course, oftentimes you would have a Schedule E pro forma information in here. And if you do, you would see that Schedule E show up in the drop-down list of options. Just like if I wanted to push this into a Schedule C, I can actually choose the index. Even though it's a 1099, I can choose which Schedule C I want it to go into. So that's how we solve the pro forma problem at a very high level here. And then the last thing that I want to mention, just as far as some nitty-gritty stuff here, is on the brokerage documents. We often get questions about how Juno handles brokerage statements. So what we will do is we will by default go to the tax summary page and pull the summary of each transaction type. So in this case, you can see it's a short-term reported transaction. And if I were to have numbers here for the long-term reported, or long-term, in this case, it's called covered, or non-covered, I would actually see multiple rows here. Then when we import this into Lacerte, if you have multiple different transaction types for one brokerage statement, under the Schedule D, you would actually see multiple line items set here for the different transaction types separated out. But instead of inputting each individual line, we do sum it up to the total. It doesn't make any material difference, the tax return. That's just how we do it because it's a lot safer as far as data extraction goes from the AI system. So I'm going to pause there and read some questions here. So I got one from Ian. What if somebody loads the same document twice? Will Juno identify that? Yes, we will. So I don't believe I have 2 of the same PDFs here. What you would normally see is if someone uploads the same document twice, we have these flags that show up on the data review screen here. And these flags, we're going to be making a small update to actually flag out to you on the statuses here to say, hey, this is a duplicate document. But if this was a duplicate document of another PDF I uploaded, you would see a 3rd flag here, which is going to say, hey, by the way, this is duplicate of this other tax document. In this case, you can actually see a couple of flags it's making right now. It's redacted and it's not able to match this to the client accurately. And then it's also saying, hey, this is for the wrong tax year. And then we have a question from Laura. How can you tell on the app that the form has been imported already if we have another form to bring through? Yep, great question. So, like I said, if I have already exported this information, you're going to see that everything is preset to skip for each one of these forms, and you're going to see the last exported time up here. And then if you were to add a new form and open up this client on the app, you would see that that form would be set to add new form. And it wouldn't have this little popover saying this was exported. So it's going to default the option to whatever it really like, whatever would be most applicable to you. Again, if you've already exported it, it's going to set it to skip. If you haven't exported it, it's going to set it to add new form. And then second question from Laura. So the interest and dividends were on one page and the binder duplicated it for each. I don't believe I showed the binder. Yeah, I'm not super sure what that's referring to, but if you want to maybe clarify, Laura, that'd be great. And then from Larry, Lacerte has not been picking up the dates from Juno. I let support know, but was wondering if this is going to be worked on. Yes, so if it depends on what date you're talking about there, Larry. I'd have to maybe know a little bit more information. There are some forms that we don't push everything into, and we're working to fill those out. Now, as of a release we did 2 weeks ago, we did actually go through all the 1099s, the 1098s, and the W-2s because there were a few forms that we weren't pushing dates through for Lacerte, and we did add that. So it could be that the dates in the brokerage sales. Okay. So if I look here, you should be seeing the dates in the brokerage sales push through. So in this case, you can see the date acquired and date sold. And we do this in the notation that Lacerte expects, which is if it's a collage of dates, it's supposed to be a negative number. And short term is supposed to be within 1 year, long term is greater than a year, right? If you're not seeing that, go ahead and reach out to support. Like I said, you can see it. I'm using the most recent version of the app here, which is 3.2.19. But if you are seeing that not push through, definitely let support know because that would be a problem. Perfect. Rebecca, any questions that I'm missing on the chat that I can go through and answer live here?
One thing was Laura would love to see the exported date. She asked if we had that, and I know that was a new feature just added into our app.
Yeah, 100%. So Laura, you can see here the exported date is not only just on each form level here, but we just released the app that also includes it on the preparation as well. So you can see, hey, if we exported this maybe tomorrow, like, and I added a new form, you would see this update to February 20th. And then again, you can see it on each form level as well and who exported it as well.
And then another question we got was for 1099 divs and interest, how would Juno handle foreign tax payments?
That is a good question. So to be honest, off the top of my head, we input each item from the 1099 div one-to-one with what you see on Lacerte here. I might need to take that one offline, but if you're talking about specifically the foreign tax information in here, we will pull that through whatever's on the form, and it's entered onto this screen here, but I don't believe that we enter it onto any other screen. But again, I might need to have a little bit more information to answer that accurately. And Rebecca, I don't know if you have any additions to that.
No worries. Yeah, I believe that is correct. And we definitely can take a farther look at this and get back to you. And one other question we just got as well was a question for Schedule A. There is a 750K mortgage interest limitation. How does Juno handle it? And then at the same time for state of California, since it is 1 million. So we do actually have the ability, and our system naturally maps based off of the 1098 mortgage interest related limitations. So as most of you probably know, based off of the size of the mortgage. So if it's above 1.5 or below 750K, as well as the origination of the mortgage before or after 2017. For each tax software, it does get mapped a bit differently. So we have handled those mapping properly. So if you put in a Schedule A 1098 mortgage interest form, any of those within the source docs in Juno, it should map automatically based off of the mortgage and interest limitations and the date that the mortgage was created.
And I can actually show that for you guys here. So you can see in this case, the 1098 that I have as an example, the principal is above 750,000, and then the date is after 2017. So if I go ahead and I change this to like 500,000, it should go and input into a different section here. So, and actually, let me, one second, let me just clear this out, right? And I'll show you guys how this works live here. So if, again, if it's lower than 750,000, it's going to not go into the excess mortgage interest section. It goes, oh man, it's been a little while since I've been in Lacerte.
I think
Um,
Jack, what we just put it, there's a module that automatically does that in Lacerte, which is what we're looking at here, and well, at least it
yep,
was before. There's a module, so we just put in all the information that Lacerte needs, and then Lacerte has a module that calculates the limitation, both at the federal and state level.
yep. And we actually do input this to, because we've done quite a substantial amount of work here on
Yeah,
this.
we put in the date of the mortgage
Here it
origination. We
is.
put in the average amount, or the whatever's on the 1098 as well.
Yep. So it goes to home mortgage interest in points, but you're going to see then if it's above that, it's not going to place the whole loan under excess mortgage interest. This is the section it would go under if the loan was the principal's above 750,000. But then again, I changed the value to be below, and we only put the interest then into this box here, and this will be totaled up with all of your 1098s. Oh wow, we've got quite a few questions here. Dave, this might be a good one for you to answer. For 1099Bs, Section 1526 contracts, how would Juno manage this workflow?
I think that's 1256 is I think there's just a typo there, but
Hmm.
yeah, we are not doing 1256 contracts yet. This is the second time I've been asked about that. So we'll put that on a list. I don't have a lot of experience with those. I'll have to look at it more carefully. It's not something that I've seen regularly. But one thing we can do very quickly is probably get that in the checklist in the binder. But we're not automatically doing that yet. So that would be something to want to look out for on the brokerage statements. But we do,
Yep.
I saw a question before about we do both, covered and non-covered lots, and we do the subtotals basically of that. Um, and so there may be times where you need to attach a PDF for a brokerage statement um, for the 8949 there. So just be aware of that. But we do enter all the other information from the brokerage statements.
Yep. And I wanted to answer a quick question about the binder. I'll keep this short. We are aware that right now Juno is separating pages within the binder. We are literally, like quite literally pushing out a pretty major update and overhaul today to this. So it's going to keep all brokerage statements, even the interest and dividend forms together. Previously, the reason why it did this is because if it found interest and dividend forms, it would separate those into the interest and dividend sections from above, which we now know is not ideal for you guys. So we are, like I said, there's a specific case with the brokerage statements. It will keep all the consolidated brokerage statements together and it will do the same thing for the K1s. So if we have state K1s or K3s, instead of separating those out on the binder, they will be placed together. And then you're actually going to get like much more descriptive names for each page here. So instead of saying just page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and instructions, instructions is about as descriptive as it gets for these, but you're going to actually see what's on that page. And that way we at least keep everything together, but we're still giving you like a granular high level view of what is actually on that brokerage statement. So fantastic call out, Laura. I totally agree with you. There's definitely some wonky problems with the way we've been organizing the binders, and that is going out today. And that will solve the problem for all binders that are created from today and onwards. And then, yep.
Um,
So it looks like that. Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
there was a question on, is there a limitation on the number of pages on 1099Bs? One individual is saying that some of their clients have 1099Bs that have over 150 pages.
Yeah, so it definitely gets hairy. I'm not going to say that we do perfectly on those, and you'll actually see like a little warning show up in the top of Juno. But if it's one account, we tend to do pretty well as far as classifying and grabbing all the information. Where it gets really hairy is if you have like 4 or 5 accounts on one brokerage statement, and they're all on the same form, the same PDF across like 200 plus pages, then our classifier does get tripped up on that. And you can imagine the reason that we get messed up is because it's trying to use all of the other pages as context, trying to figure out which pages are associated with which account, and it can kind of mangle that up. But in general, like large brokerage statements with just all the transactions listed are fine as long as it's one account. And as long as you're not placing like other documents with it. So we generally recommend like instead of uploading one PDF that's got everything on it, we just recommend uploading those separately. We will take in one PDF with everything. And if it's like maybe 20 pages of various source documents, we have no problem. Our classifier is extremely accurate in those cases, but it's in the crazy cases where you might put everything with that, like K1s and brokerage statements and things like that. But yeah, give it a try with those big 150-page brokerage forms. We worked with a couple of firms last July, actually, very closely, who had these really big brokerage statements when we were just really early with Juno. And so we tested on their system pretty heavily, or sorry, they tested their documents in our system very heavily, and they were very satisfied as long as the document had one account. It didn't really matter how many pages was in it. Perfect. And then let's see here, just to make sure we've got everything.
Could you mention about how data is inputted for schedulees?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the same way that we do it in the Schedule C, obviously to the Schedule E page. But you're going to basically, if you upload a P&L statement, or in this case, it wouldn't be a P&L, but it might just be your rental breakdown of expenses and rents and royalties and things like that. So you upload that as PDF, Excel, CSV, whatever. You're going to see the same screen where it gives you each category and then each line item that we found within that category. And then when you go to import this into Juno, it's again using the same format where if you want every line item to go in individually, you can just turn those toggles off on each category. They by default are on. And we're making improvements to that screen, by the way, too, just so in case you want to like turn all of them off or turn them off all the time and have the default be different, we're going to have that rolling out shortly here. But the general gist of it is that the Schedule E's flow and logically like map the same way that the Schedule C's do, where you can map multiple forms, multiple to one of the same Schedule E's on Lacerte if you'd like.
And I think this answers most of the questions. If anyone has anything else pressing, feel free to send it in the webinar chat right now, but definitely appreciate the time. Anything else, Jack, that you want to add before we wrap up? I have a couple small things, but I want to check with you.
No, I think that's about everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, so definitely one, I know we got a lot of questions related to the binder today. So as Jack mentioned, we are pushing out an update today. If you are still seeing some of these issues reoccurring tomorrow, definitely send a ticket to support@juno.tax and send some information on the client associated, and we will make sure to look into that and get back to you. In general, for any bugs that you are seeing, definitely send a email to support@juno.tax. They are working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and get back to you really quickly. And it allows our developers to kind of dive into your client specifically and see why this is occurring and push out a fix. In addition to that, we had a lot of great product feature requests today. So we definitely recommend sending an email over to feature requests@juno.tax as well for a lot of these types of ideas. As especially like as we can, we love to update those and push them out, and or after tax season, we'll get to a lot of these items. And then the last thing that I would add as well is we recently started a community channel called moderntaxpros.com. And so on this page, we have quite a few different groups and chats where we're sharing general product updates there. We have a kind of live Q&A channel where we can answer questions you guys have about Juno. We have a feature request page there as well. So definitely hop in there. Tanishka shared the link within the webinar chat, but it's a great way to stay involved on a daily basis with Juno. But definitely thank you guys for joining. All of this information that we shared today will be shared via email as well as this demo and the slides. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, at support.juno.tax, we have lots of articles that run through all of this information. And so we definitely recommend your teams taking a look at that and reviewing all of the Lacerte-based articles, because it really goes through each part of this step by step and gets into the nitty gritty of items that may cause problems with exports. So we make sure that all your settings and your firms is good to go with Lacerte. and Juno. But thank you guys again for chatting with us today and joining us for this demo. And we really appreciate all the feedback and all the requests. It's super, super helpful for us and super appreciate it. Thank you guys. Anything else, Jack, on your side?
Yeah, just one last question here. If there are multi-state K1s, is Juno going to create the different state returns accordingly? So no, this is actually a really big philosophy that we take, which we don't actually touch your return. We don't decide to set it up. And so we leave that on to you as the preparer. There's too many situations in which there's nitty-gritty nuance that we might not be aware of. We do handle multi-state K1s, and actually we are partnered with K1X. We're providing that completely free to you guys this whole tax season. So you're going to get the best K1 data extraction models in the world for free. It's going to be able to extract K1s, K3s, state K1s, UBTI 199A, and I don't think I'm missing anything on that list, but it does import it just fine. Just make sure your states and whatever you need to have set up for the return is set up prior to Juno getting the data in there.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And we'll talk to you guys online.
Thank you, everybody.